tell you, let me share with you one of the things I'm most proud of. When I was campaigning as a challenger, having absolutely no experience in politics before, the one theme that I kept hearing from Brooklyn was that they were always disappointed, whether it was the Republican or the Democrat. In recent years, they felt that it was always a Staten Island congressman, and that the Staten Island congressman would once in a while come to Brooklyn. But they never felt like they had their own congressman. So I made it a point, and I really worked hard to make Brooklyn as equal as I can with Staten Island and as a big a part of all the things that I do every day, including my staff, all the work that we do, to make sure that everyone within this part of my district knows that they have a Brooklyn congressman. And I really do hope that you feel that I've succeeded in that endeavor. One of the ways that I did that was by trying to get involved very heavily in the local issues. Fort Hamilton is a perfect example. Almost day one, practically, of me taking office, when I took office, we had a problem. Fort Hamilton, the Army Corps of Engineers had this grand idea to go to Manhattan. Obviously, that's not good for the fort. It could mean susceptibility to a crack. It's not something we want to do. So, that being said, I was able to put language in an appropriations bill that actually passed and became law to keep the Army Corps there. Then, more recently, the current administration cut funding for something called CSTs. CSTs are in every single state in America, and they're elite anti-terror groups that specialize in WMD, weapons of mass destruction. They wanted to cut the funding for the one here in Brooklyn, right here at Fort Hamilton. Now, I know you're thinking in Iowa, Indiana, and all these places, they're going to have anti-terror units, but New York City isn't. It doesn't make sense. We were able to fight and make sure that stayed. So there's an example of getting involved, but even more granular than that. When I took office, I heard that McKinley Park, over on 75th in Fort Hamilton, for 3 years, something as simple as the bathroom was broken for 3 years. And I heard from people like pregnant women that are taking their children in a stroller to the park, little things like that. It's about quality of life. 3 years, they couldn't get it fixed. It was less than 2 months, I got involved, and we got it fixed. The point is, I've taken an interest. Why? Because I spend time here. That's how I was successful in doing it. I train at a boxing gym over on 68th Street. I eat all the time throughout the area. I put my office, a brand new congressional office, right on 13th Avenue in Dyker. This was my way of showing that I'm a part of this community, I care about this community, and I'm going to work my tail off to make sure we have the best quality of life possible. Whether it was fighting for the buses, the B-64, there's the X-27, we still have work to do. All right, I went around to all the merchants and said, well, what's stopping your businesses from growing? And simple things, ridiculous things, like 2-hour meters. Some merchants didn't have 2-hour meters, and they're saying, listen, someone wants to come in and have dinner, it takes more than an hour, and they're getting a ticket. They want to get them come in and get their nails done, their hair done. Again, all of these things, 3rd Avenue, 5th Avenue, we got 2-hour meters. We have them on 13th Avenue, but we still got to fight for 11th and Fort Hamilton. These are all the things that matter to how a community grows. I also want to say something else. All of these local issues, I didn't do them by myself. Okay, in all sincerity, I could not have had a better partner than Senator Marty Golden. I have to give him, in all sincerity, a lot of and brand new legislator, I did look for his experience, his knowledge, and his leadership many times, and I'll tell you what, his door was open every single time. And every time we wanted to get something done, I went to Senator Golden, we partnered up, and we've been very effective. So I do want to thank the Senator for that. But we have a lot of challenges. It's not just the local things. Right now, we're looking at some major, major challenges this country is facing. And I think this election is probably the most important election of this country's history. Why? Because we have two different ideologies. We have two different paths. We can go down a road of bigger government and more debt, a government that grows and tells us what we should do, how we should do it, or we can go down the road of what we've always had, independent responsibility. Freedoms and liberties to live our lives the right way, but within our means, within a budget, to have what we need, but not more that we can't afford. And that's a difficult thing to do. And it's going to take leadership. But in my opinion, the President has failed to lead on many of these issues. We have 4 years of $1 trillion deficits. He promised he would cut the deficit in half. He doubled it. We are now over $16 trillion in debt and growing with no end in sight. And he has no plan. During the debates, he spoke about his $4 trillion plan. That was his budget. And the Republicans blocked it. That's not true. The truth of the matter is, not one Democrat voted for the president's budget. Not one. In the Senate this year, 2012, it lost 99-0 against. In the House, it was 430-something to 0. Not one Democrat voted for his budget. Fiscal year 11, same thing. 97 to 0 in the Senate. So we desperately need leadership for the economy to grow. The idea that we're going to raise taxes on everyone simply doesn't make sense. And when you talk about taxes, you can't help but mention the president's health care plan. Now, I'm opposed to his health care plan, but I want to make a point. The opponent that I beat in 2010, the Democrat incumbent, voted against the president's health care plan. He voted against it, and he was quoted as saying, because it's going to take too much money away from hospitals in Staten Island and Brooklyn. Let me put that in context. Now that we know what's in the bill, now that we know what's in it, $16 billion with a B will be taken from New York City hospitals. New York City, $16 billion. How does that affect Brooklyn? $5.25 billion will be taken from Brooklyn hospitals. How does that affect us? Well, we have Lutheran right here. They're going to lose almost $200 million. Maimonides, they're going to lose almost $400 million. This is real money in our neighborhoods. This is going to affect our seniors, our grandparents, our friends, our neighbors, our children. These are real cuts. $16 billion just in New York City. That doesn't include the fact that $716 billion comes out of Medicare. We have 38,000 people in this district that have Medicare Advantage. It is estimated that half of those that have Medicare Advantage will no longer have it. And the other half will lose benefits to the amount of $4,500 per person. The president said that his health care plan was going to decrease family plans by $2,500 in the first year. Well, he was almost right. It was the other way. It has increased family premiums by $2,340. And it is still continuing to rise. So I think that, in my opinion, it's clear. The president said he would do things, he didn't. He failed. When you look at the economic policies, the fact that we still have unemployment for 43 months that is out of control, when we look at the debt and deficits that are climbing, and when we look at another thing outside this country, our national policies, our foreign affairs, our national defense, it could not be worse. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in a more dangerous world now than ever. We recently had an ambassador and 3 other Americans killed in our own consulate. And the president says it's a bump in the road. For 3 to 4 days, the president's Secretary of State and ambassador to the UN went on TV and said this was a sporadic, spontaneous uprising. They brought RPGs and mortar rounds. We now know beyond a shadow of a doubt, as we knew then, it was a terrorist attack. My point is that a foreign policy based on apologies and appeasement is making our nation more dangerous, more susceptible. It is emboldening our enemies, and it is dangerous. When you couple that with the failed policies domestically, when you couple that with an overwhelming government takeover of health care that is failing, it's raising prices and leaving us with less care instead of more, I think the choice is clear. But I'm going to end with this. Even though we have some very